He was mocked as a quack by Hitler's own generals, yet no doctor spent more time with the Führer than Dr. Theodor Morell. For years, Hitler trusted him without question, but when the war ended, the doctor who had been closer to Hitler than almost anyone faced a surprising fate. This is the strange story of Hitler's personal doctor and how he managed to walk free while so many others in the Nazi leadership faced justice. Theodor Morell hardly seemed like the man who would become Adolf Hitler's most trusted doctor. Born in 1886 in a small German town, he studied medicine in Grenoble, Paris, and Munich before specializing in obstetrics and gynecology. By 1913, he had completed his doctorate, then served as a ship's doctor and later as a battalion medical officer during the First World War. After the war in 1918, he opened a private practice in Berlin. Funded in part by his wife's wealth, it was equipped with the latest medical technology, a lure for wealthy patients seeking quick cures for skin and digestive ailments. Morell's reputation grew so much that he declined offers to serve as personal physician to the Shah of Persia and the King of Romania. His methods, a mix of conventional medicine and experimental treatments, divided opinion. But that same unconventional approach would be exactly what caught Hitler's attention. In 1935, Heinrich Hoffmann, Hitler's personal photographer, was suffering from crippling stomach cramps. Morell treated him successfully when others had failed. Hoffmann became Morell's loudest advocate, insisting he had found a doctor who could achieve what the rest of the profession could not. That introduction would change Morell's life. Inside Hitler's circle, however, Morell was far from universally admired. Albert Speer dismissed him as careless, and Heinrich Himmler once tested his Vitamultin formula, suspecting it contained methamphetamine. The rivalry between Morell and Dr. Karl Brandt, Hitler's escort physician since 1934, was sharp and personal. Others whispered that Morell cared more about profit than patients. Then came the meeting that altered everything. In 1936, Hitler was once again suffering from intense stomach cramps that no one had been able to cure. Morell made a bold promise. He could succeed where others had failed. He prescribed a course of vitamins and Mutaflor, a probiotic strain of E. coli bacteria that was highly experimental at the time. The results seemed miraculous. Within days, the cramps eased and a long-standing leg rash had faded. To Hitler, this was proof of Morell's extraordinary skill. Almost overnight, the doctor was invited into Hitler's inner circle at Berchtesgaden, becoming part of his private household. Hitler's reliance deepened quickly, so much so that he would halt his personal train mid-journey for injections. Concerns voiced were dismissed without a second thought. Hitler's gratitude for Morell's loyalty and care went far beyond verbal praise. He awarded his physician the honorary title of Professor, pinned on the prestigious Golden Party badge, and even presented him with the Knight's Cross of the War Merit Cross. Morell turned this closeness into a lucrative business empire. His Vitamultin supplement was sold through the German Labour Front, while his Russler powder, marketed as a delousing agent, found a ready buyer in the Wehrmacht. Combined with his annual salary of 60,000 Reichsmarks, these ventures earned him an estimated fortune of 7 million Reichsmarks. To critics inside the Führer's headquarters, this was proof that the doctor's injections weren't the only thing he was dispensing for profit. Morell's real gift lay as much in psychology as medicine. He projected certainty, offering Hitler reassurance when others offered only doubt. It made him indispensable. But what exactly Morell was giving the Führer each day and what it would do to him was about to become one of the most controversial aspects of their relationship. Morell kept an unusually detailed medical diary, logging every substance he gave Hitler, and the list was staggering. Across their nearly decade-long relationship, Hitler received 74 different substances in 28 separate mixtures, delivered through pills, injections, and other methods. These included sedatives, powerful stimulants, and even pills laced with toxic compounds. Among the most striking entries were 3 substances in particular. First, Eucodol, a morphine-like opioid that eased pain but carried a high risk of dependency. And there was Pervitin, a methamphetamine-based stimulant used to keep Hitler alert during marathon meetings and briefings. And finally, orchicrin, an extract made from bovine testosterone and pituitary gland, promoted at the time as both a tonic and an aphrodisiac. Morell's influence wasn't limited to Hitler. In March 1939, during the German occupation of Czechoslovakia, Czech President Emil Hácha collapsed during tense negotiations. Morell quickly injected him with stimulants, likely containing methamphetamine, reviving him enough to continue talks on terms favorable to Germany. The episode revealed how Morell's medical skills could be used to shape political outcomes. Yet Morell's authority within Nazi hierarchy had its limits. In May 1942, after Reinhard Heydrich was gravely wounded in an assassination attempt, Morell advised using the new antibiotic penicillin. Karl Gebhard, Heinrich Himmler's chief physician, ignored the suggestion, refusing to use the drug. Heydrich died from infection a week later, showing that even Hitler's favored doctor could be sidelined when political rivalries intervened. Suspicion of Morell's treatment grew. In September 1944, Dr. Giesing analyzed Morell's so-called anti-gas pills and discovered they contained strychnine and belladonna, both poisonous in high doses. To confirm his findings, Giesing tested them on himself and became violently ill. When presented with this evidence, Hitler refused to doubt his doctor. Instead, he dismissed Giesing, Brandt, and Hans-Karl von Hasselbach from his medical staff, keeping Morell by his side. This loyalty persisted even as Hitler's health spiraled downward and his reliance on daily injections and pills reached extreme levels. Many historians now believe that Morell's elaborate drug regimen may have accelerated Hitler's physical decline and possibly affected his mental state in the final years. By the closing months of the war, Hitler's dependency on Morell's treatments was absolute, and that dependence would follow them both into the concrete confines of the Führer bunker. Even as Soviet artillery shook the ground above the Führer bunker, Hitler insisted on his daily injections and pills. His health was failing fast, but Morell remained his lifeline. In the claustrophobic bunker under constant bombardment, the doctor's role took on a grim new dimension. His medical bag now contained items with purposes far beyond healing. On April 20, 1945, Hitler's 56th birthday, the Führer ordered key staff, including Morell, to evacuate the city. After 9 years, the doctor-patient relationship that had bound them together was over. Hitler no longer needed daily checkups or treatments. What he asked for now was something far more final. Before leaving, Morell carried out his last service for Hitler's closest circle. He provided poison capsules to Eva Braun and to Josef and Magda Goebbels. Several other bunker staff requested the same. The doctor who once claimed he could cure Hitler's stomach ailments was now supplying the means for them to avoid capture by the Soviet forces. On April 23rd, Morell left Berlin aboard a small aircraft from the Fliegerstaffel des Führers. With him went nearly a decade's worth of secrets, the details of Hitler's medical history, his drug regimen, and his physical decline. In the chaos of Germany's collapse, it was easy to disappear among the countless soldiers and civilians fleeing west. American troops captured Morell on May 18, 1945. He was held at the former Buchenwald concentration camp and subjected to intensive questioning about his time with Hitler. One interrogator later noted his neglected appearance, overweight, and clearly suffering from poor hygiene. The Allies wanted specifics: Hitler's medical condition, the exact substances administered, and how much influence Morell might have had on major wartime decisions. Few people alive knew more about Hitler's private life than he did. Then came the unexpected twist. After weeks of interrogation, the Americans let him go. No charges, no trial. Despite his closeness to Hitler, prosecutors saw no clear legal grounds to convict him. His case underscored the complexity of post-war justice, where being in the inner circle did not automatically mean criminal guilt, especially when involvement came through a professional role rather than direct acts of violence. Morell walked free, but for other Nazi doctors, freedom would not come so easily. Dr. Karl Brandt faced a very different fate. As Hitler's chief medical officer and a central figure in the state-directed lethal medical program, Brandt was found guilty of crimes against humanity at the Nuremberg doctors' trial. He had personally overseen medical policies that resulted in the deaths of thousands. The contrast between Brandt's execution and Morell's release could not have been starker. Prosecutors saw Brandt as a man directly responsible for implementing lethal medical programs. Morell, by comparison, was seen as a personal physician whose influence came through daily care, not through administering state-run killings. Both had served at Hitler's side, but in the eyes of the law, their levels of culpability were vastly different. Despite appeals from medical colleagues, General Lucius D. Clay refused to grant clemency to Brandt, stating simply, "I am unable to grant clemency." For the Allies, his execution sent a clear message: those who directed medical killings would face the full weight of justice. When it came to Morell, prosecutors weighed the case differently. His intimate knowledge of Hitler's health made him valuable to Allied intelligence. His role as Hitler's personal doctor, rather than a policymaker or administrator of mass killings, made it more difficult to prove criminal intent. Evidence showed that he had profited from his position and helped create Hitler's drug dependency, but under the legal standards of the time, this was not enough for a conviction on war crimes charges. After his release, Morell returned quietly to Bavaria. His health deteriorated rapidly under the strain of interrogation and the loss of his position. His reputation in medicine was ruined and former colleagues kept their distance. On May 26, 1948, just months after Brandt's execution, Morell died in relative obscurity, his death barely noticed in a world that once feared his influence over the Nazi leader. The doctor's trial would go on to establish the Nuremberg Code, a set of principles that reshaped medical ethics worldwide, including voluntary consent for research subjects and the obligation to minimize risk. Morell's story shows how even ordinary professionals can get drawn into serving dangerous regimes, sometimes step by step, driven by ambition and opportunity. He started out as a respected doctor for wealthy clients, but ended up enabling one of history's most destructive leaders. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching. If you found this story compelling, you'll also want to check out what happened to Hitler's bodyguards after World War II. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more World War II content. And we'll see you in the next one.